Hello everyone, this is Anuvenda from the GCS MDM team. This video is to talk about ad hoc matching capability in MDM version 10.4. The agenda for this video is to understand the need for ad hoc match, the configuration for it. We'll take a look at how it works and review the match results towards the end of it. So ad hoc match lets you match new records with existing records. Before you import a file in E360, you can perform a match to compare the records you import with existing records in the base object. The match process then identifies duplicate and unmatched records. You can then select to import the matched records, import the unmatched records, or you can import all records. There are some settings to take care of before you use the ad hoc match on E360. One is this property called as allowed file extensions, which is available by default in the CMake server or properties file. By default, only PDF and JPG are the allowed file extensions, but you need to add CSV, XLSX, XLS if these are the file types that you want to use. So ad hoc match typically uses these file extensions, so don't forget to add these in this property here. The other setting is to make sure you have a match rule set configured on the base object for which you want to run the ad hoc match on. So you run the ad hoc match in E360, which uses the underlying business entity. So make sure the match rule set has been configured on the corresponding base object. And you have enable search by rules enabled. So ad hoc match uses those match rule sets that have the enable search by rules enabled. So once you log into E360, when you click on ad hoc match, you can drag and drop a CSV or Excel file. So this is the source file which you're trying to import in E360, and before you import, you want to run a match on these records against the existing base object records to know the ones that you're importing are duplicates or if they are unique records. So you select an Excel file or a CSV file. Let me select this one here. So this is how I created the Excel file in the first place. I have some first names, last names, middle names, party type and display names in this Excel file. So I imported the same file. You can go back and change the file and use another file and so on. So let me select it back again. I uploaded this file. So if you see here, you have all the column headers and you have all the data against for each of these columns. And then the panel below here are the file import settings or the file properties, which are populated based on the file you select to import. The first property is the import from sheet, which is applicable for Excel kind of files, which which tells you what sheet name that you'll be importing data from. Then there is import data from line, which says from which line you want to import the actual data from. And then there's a property that says has column headers. So if your file has column headers, you click on that and select what's the column header, what the line number for that is. And then there's a property called as regional settings, which you enable if you have international characters in your source file. And then there's a date pattern, which takes in the format of the date for the date records in your file. And there's a decimal separator and a thousand separator. When you click on next, you get an option to map the fields from your source to the fields in a target business entity. So these are all the source columns that it picked from the source. And then the system suggested an appropriate target for it, which is the person business entity. You can either choose to accept the suggested business entity or you can reject it. If you reject it, you can select your own business entity which you think would map to these source columns. So if I click on accept and click on this person business entity that it suggested, if you see here, if you click on each of these mappings, it will tell you which field from the business entity is mapped to which column from the source. So party type from the business entity is mapped to party type here in the source. Last name from the business entity is mapped to the last name in the source here, and so on. So this is how the field mapping is done. Once this is set up, you click on next, and here you select the match rule set because ad hoc match runs using this match rule set which is configured. I have WS and workflow as the match rule sets that I showed earlier. If you select none, it will use the generated search match rule set, which is an in-memory rule set it will use, which uses the match purpose as fields. So I'll select workflow as the match rule set to run this ad hoc match. Then I click on match here. So it creates an ad hoc match job. It executes that job here. So here is how you can see the progress of the job. It completed successfully. If you click on the success here, it will tell you how many were matched between those records that you have in the source, how many were unique, and how many were skipped, if at all they were skipped for some reason. If you click on view results, here is where it will tell you what were the number of records that were matched. So it showed that 7 records matched. So if you see here, this was the record from source, which is Stanley Galser from the source, matched with the target in the base object, which is Stanley Glasser. And the confidence score for matching these two pairs, these two records is 95. That's what it lists here. So it tells you what was the rule set name, what was the rule number that it matched on, what was the match purpose, match level, and rule definition, and so on. So this will give you the match rule details, and so on. You can see the how these each of these pairs matched with each other and what was the score calculated for them. You can click on this show preview to uh, get details about the record, the source person record and the target person records, so you can get a preview of those records. And here is an option to go to unique records to see which were the records that did not match or that were unmatched. And here is an option to traverse through all the records that came in from the source. So you have an option to import just the matched records into E360. You have an option to import the unmatched records, or you have an option to import all records in E360. So this is how you'll import records in E360, and you import them based on if you want to know if the records are duplicates or if they are singleton records. Lastly, there's an option to download matched records. So if you click on this, it generates a CSV file which gives information on which row number from the source matched with which row ID object from the target, what was the match rule and match rule number, match rule set used, and the match score against it. So this is how ad hoc match works. This is how it is set up. You can find more information on what needs to be set up and how it is executed. All the information is mentioned in this data director user guide, which you can view if you click on this link. It's applicable for MDM 10.4 version. Uh, so this has all the information pertaining to ad hoc matching. That's all this video is about. Thank you for listening.